Hey, welcome to KC201 as the screen behind me goes dark. My name's Chris. I'm glad you're here watching online. And we have a room, I won't say a room full. That would be doing pastor math. But we've got a good group of folks here. What I'd like to begin with is just welcoming you guys, telling you what's going to happen tonight. And then we'll kind of go from there. So you're here for KC201. And basically, KC201 is supposed to be the next level beyond KC101 and becoming a regular Kids Club volunteer. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into our mission and what that looks like and ways that we can sharpen. This is the third or fourth time that we've done it on different topics. We'll kind of get to that in a second. But this is ultimately meant to be for you guys. I've got some content. Vince has some content. We've got some video stuff, but mostly we want to know what are the real questions, what are the real issues that you've run into, and maybe we can group think some of that, all right? Before we do anything else, I'd like to pray for us real quick. God, thank you for Crossroads, this thing called Crossroads, and this place called Kids Club, and these folks who volunteer and lead. Thank you for the work we get to do, and thank you for tonight. Thank you that we had a snow day. Some of us were able to relax a little bit. Maybe for others that made it not relaxing. But thank you for the time that we've got today to go deeper on this mission that you've called us to do, and find ways to do it better. May everything we talk about tonight, everything we do coming out of tonight, ultimately honor you. Let this not just be about me and the things that I've got to say, but ultimately we want it to be about you and the things you have to say. So speak to us. We're listening. We want to do what you say. We love you. Thank you for the food as well, and we're thankful for this time. Amen. All right. So you're here tonight for some talking about welcoming and families, specifically some basics of customer service and how to welcome a new family. Welcome. What to expect? We've got live streamers. We've got 0 so far, but also there are people watching in the future, right? So it's a win-win. So we're gonna have some live streamers. We're gonna build some community in here in a second. This board here is gonna be for us to record any takeaways that we've got so that it doesn't just disappear. You also have in front of you these little cards here. Feel free to take notes if by some weird, rare chance I say something that's really pithy and interesting that you want to remember, go ahead and write it down here. The reason that they're this size is they fit right on the back of your name tag. So your name tag faces out, but this can always face you. All right, so if there's anything, make sure you take notes there. And then we will have a Q&A at the end. My goal is to leave about 15 to 20 minutes so that we can actually get some momentum going with Q&A. All right. With that, just as some of you guys have just begun to eat, sorry, we're going to begin with an icebreaker, and Vince is going to lead us through that. This will go for about the next 10 minutes. So if you're watching in the future, just skip ahead 10 minutes, unless you want to watch us do the icebreaker. All right, cool. Vince.
So, hey guys, Vince. What I want you guys to do is I think we kind of already have a natural break, but maybe like move over there, but like in groups of kind of like 4. Think of the worst customer service experience you experienced, the last one, and like just think through that. And then what I want you to kind of really talk through is what were you feeling you experienced? Share that with each other. And we'll take the next 5 minutes?
Yeah,
5 to 10 minutes. Sharing about that. And we'd love to hear then you guys vote on who has the worst experience. And then we'll share that. Cool.
Great. So go ahead and group up. I'll sit in with you guys.
Seriously. Perfect. As many restaurants as
there we go. There we go. I can go first if unless somebody else has got another one. Great. So I'll go first. So my wife and I, we recently had a weekend off. I work a lot of weekends, so when we have a weekend off, it's like, let's do all the things. And one of the things we wanted to do was go to Montgomery Inn Boathouse. which we'd heard a lot about. I like ribs, you know, the whole thing. Well, we made reservations for a Friday night online, and we show up 5 minutes before our reservation, and we were told there will be a slight wait of 45 minutes. And to me, slight wait is like 10 to 15. Well, we're like, well, we have a reservation. Like, what's going on? We've got a wedding upstairs and different things going on. Okay. 45 minutes pass. Oh, it's going to be another 10 to 20 minutes. We had a reservation. No, you have priority seating. This is my email that says I've got a reservation. Fine print says priority seating. I'm like, okay, great. And long story short, it takes about an hour and a half to get seated. My wife's pregnant, which is a footnote to this, but like,
it's a long time to wait.
Yes, yeah, it was a long time to wait. And like it's past 9 o'clock when we order our food.
Right.
And food took a long time. Like it was, you know, and at no point during all of this did a manager stop by or did anybody. And we said things like, hey, I know it's not your fault, but this has been a pretty poor experience tonight, you know, and no follow-up or anything. And it was rough, man. I mean, that happened maybe.
That's a good one.
Like 2 months, 2 weeks ago. So that was it for me.
I was trying to think. I don't have any really horrible recent stories. I had a horrible experience bad experience on Amazon this past week where I was just trying to find something specific. I was trying to find a replacement. I have to carry 2 phones, so during the week for work I carry this, and it's worn out, and I just could not figure out where to go. I guess it was a wayfinding problem on Amazon, but I found and bought a case that's this big for my little phone that's this big.
Get our bill,
so
$64.99.
kind of wasted
So then
money
I
and
called
time
like, so
there.
why is it up to $64.99?
I just was amazed at how much it just looked like
switch over to Spectrum.
the online equivalent of throwing a whole bunch of crap in a bucket,
you
know,
and
not having it organized and not having it searchable.
Oh, well, you can, but they're not going to
It's
be as
just-
fast as us. So.
That's the only thing that pops to mind for me.
So for me, it was
It's tough when you're like, I know this thing
in the mail
exists.
saying that
Yeah.
free of charge.
It's
It
simple.
was
It's been around for years.
So
It's
we're paying for it. And
I
then
just
two,
wanted
it's
to
like
replace
they know
it,
they got
really.
a monopoly. Like we call it society valve. So like or looked it up.
That's tough.
It's not that common.
I had one today.
So they know they have.
The work laptop came in.
Because I
And
switch
my
back and
password
forth.
Yeah,
So
me
it's
too.
about Spectrum. About every 2
information
years.
with it, so I can.
And I can knock off about 30, 40 dollars each time I switch. But it's a
I called
constant switch
2
going.
times.
It is a
between 2 and
hassle,
3
because
to
they
get a hold of
like
this one
you have to turn in all the equipment to them.
Yeah.
And nobody answered. Nobody answered. I left them. I
Because I had a
put in
similar
voicemail
situation.
because their voicemail was full.
Except it was
So then I
instant
decided, well, I'm
send
gonna be
out,
smart. I'm gonna go to the sales
I had
department
to
and see if they can
pay, and
transfer.
I was paying.
Their voicemail was not
So
set up,
what we're doing right now
which made
is,
no sense.
I
So
was
that's
paying
the
a certain
sales
amount,
side.
then they
And this is the
upped it
company
like
that our company uses.
$40.
So then
And I
I
was like,
said,
They were
how
like,
when
well,
that
you
number
had a
came up, I
promotion.
can get some.
I was like, you know
Nope,
what?
there's no
Never mind.
no,
And
it's
he was
not.
like, well, I can take
So finally, I just
and this is
I called my
someone
mom.
who sounds like they were just
Hey, how long does it take to get a hold of this?
You know,
lovely help
He's
desk
like, I can
for
take
IT?
$10 off for you.
What do you mean? I said,
No,
well,
that's
all the
not good enough.
voicemails are full.
I'm
and
just
one's
gonna
not
go
set
somewhere
up, and
else.
that's the sales. Good.
Hold on,
Give me
let
5
see.
minutes.
Let's
Within
see what
5
I can
minutes,
do.
I had the
He's
director of
miraculously my bill is now
on
the
the
same
phone
as it
fixing
was. Imagine that.
and then
You just have to say,
Going
I'm
to a
leaving
lot
unless
of
you drop
Yes.
it back down to
Well,
what it
yes.
was.
Sometimes you
true,
get.
but we still go
Yes.
to our customers.
Buy new laptops.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes they get it sometimes.
They're the worst.
And to be honest with you, these people know how to work.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they are good at it.
I had a hard time too. And
Well, it probably means like you're easily content. You know, it's probably what that means. Like, I mean, one thing that bothered me about our experience was like
8 minutes. From my home.
I used to work in
So
restaurants. Like,
they
I'm not
had
the
to
dude that's
come-
just gonna
There
complain
was
about
something
everything.
wrong with
You know what
my
I mean? Like, I'm not going to like try
a
to
store had
nitpick or
not sold
whatever.
out in my cable,
This was
whatever,
just
and my
like
internet,
a
so they were coming
trifecta
to
of
fix it.
things.
And
Like,
so I'm
I-
waiting,
you know,
waiting to
There was
get a call
a
from
lot
someone, waiting to get a call from someone. And they never called me.
Hey,
And I
Chris.
said, I
How's it
got
going,
a
man?
call to say we missed you. And I was like, no one ever called me to say we were there. And they were like, yes, they did call you. Except for the day.
No, it
I
didn't.
did go
Well, you might not
into
have service.
a hair salon.
This is my job. I
My
know
hair
where
colored.
I have always have service.
And
I was like,
they
nobody called me. They were like, well, the
proceeded
technician was there.
to
He described the
the guy
house,
was
blah, blah,
just
blah.
sitting
And I was
there,
like,
like on
he may have been there, but he never called me. And so
Right.
then I was
Okay.
like,
2:30.
well, I need this fixed, so I have to set up another day.
But
and
it was almost like they
And so then he's like,
didn't.
then I'm like, I'm a little
to work
frustrated. I don't even know if I want to
on
set
the
up another
Saturday
day if you're
that
gonna
we
do
came.
this. He's like, well, you're gonna do it or
And
not.
I ended up
I
just
was
kind of
like,
leaving.
Jeez.
Fine, I'm gonna
Yeah.
set it up another day. And I was
We
like,
can set up
can
another
you
time
say,
so
I
that
want you to put a note in there.
went
They
and picked
leave a
another one down the
message if
street
they
to get
call
it
me.
colored.
Sure.
Because I know they didn't call
Won't
me.
be coming back here.
So the next
So,
time, the
yeah.
next day, I was at work.
Andy,
and
we're
they
for our
didn't call
icebreaker.
me. They said we'll be there
we are-
between 8 and 12.
We
It
are
was like
complaining in mass.
10:45.
What was the
Yeah,
last?
kind of.
What was the last like
Oh.
4 customer service
The
experiences?
technician is at your house right now.
Last
I was
four
like,
customer service.
And I was like, well, tell him I will be there
Oh.
in 8 minutes.
I did just.
But they hadn't called me. And he was about
This
to
is
leave.
rare because I buy a
So.
ton of stuff from Amazon. And I usually have pretty good experience. Did you
JD
just have
was
any-
just talking about that.
I did.
It's a good thing
Where
I
did
called
you-
because they were
what
never going to
happened?
call me.
I got
To say, oh, we tried it 2
something I needed.
times.
Let's see, how did this work?
I
And
think
literally
I
the
needed to
fix
get
took
my
like
account
5 minutes.
changed.
Yeah.
My email was an old
It always does.
email account.
I
I
think
forgot
one
my
that comes to
password,
mind
so I
is
needed to
when
get
Maria and I
that
went to
switched over.
Miami
Yeah.
last
And
summer,
the person, I can't remember
and
exactly
my
what
mom,
happened,
we
but
went
the
for
person-
our anniversary.
I said, "Here's what
And
you
my
need
mom,
to
as
do.
an anniversary
You need to
gift,
go to a
got
different
us
route to get
a
this
rental
taken
car
care
for
of."
the week.
And
And actually, we
transferred
were
me
there
over
for like
there,
3 or 4
and I had
days.
to re-explain
Um,
everything to somebody else.
And so it was like
who actually
a cheap
said,
rental car,
no,
like
you
200
should have
bucks
been
for
with that
5
other
days or whatever.
person.
And
Yeah.
we
Anyway,
wrap
so
up
I got
all this stuff,
frustrated.
and
I
this
got going-
guy tells
you know,
us,
going
well,
back
there's
and
all these
forth
like state laws that you have to like,
two
you know,
people, I had to
comply with and
re-explain
everything,
myself.
and so it's really going to be, it's like
And-
$550.
and you've been
At the
waiting
end,
in
I finally
line
talked to
for, like,
somebody. She
to
said,
get
"Oh, no,
to
this
for
is
like
right.
45
arrest.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for 45
And
Just like,
It was
man,
great.
I really think it's
Before
only
that,
supposed to be
I
like
was
$250.
there.
And he's like, no, like you have to have. And I was like, man,
I do.
he's like, there's the law, and he pointed
It
to
was a
this
while
this
ago.
document on
I was
the
at
on the wall.
Culver's
He's like, no,
at
this is the
the
law. It's
bistro.
going to be $550.
And,
Or whatever. I was like,
waiting for them to
And
take
we
my
were like-
but he had to put
so we
all
left.
the
Twice what-
And I called my
They
mom
said,
because it was on her
"Oh,
credit
he's
card. I was like,
"Can
Mom,
you just wait a few
it's
minutes?"
like
I'm like,
$550.
"Sure, no
And
Waited
she
and
was
waited
like,
and
okay,
waited.
whatever, just we'll
Waited
deal
and
with it.
waited and waited.
Um,
I finally
and
said,
she ended up
"You know,
calling
I've been here,
them.
I've been really
Or no, she
patient,
first
I
said, there's
waited,
no way, go back
and
in.
you
So I went
never
back in
come to see my
and
dad."
like
So I
got
did
into
go
it
to
with
the
this guy
store
again.
and
He's
I
like, no,
let
man,
her
I'm
know.
telling you, it's
No,
it's
I would
like
pay
it
for
is
it
what
now.
it is.
How
It's
much-
required.
how
That's
long
just
do I
the
have to
base
wait?
fee that you're
You know?
paying.
Yeah.
And then
So she called the headquarters.
so then she called the
His mom
headquarters.
does not take it for you.
Yeah. And long story short, they told her that no, it could have been.
So
it should have
Vince's
been
instruction
250 or
is for us to
whatever.
decide
Like, you
Um,
didn't have to have
who's
that.
got-
And we
If
were
you
like-
already
who's got
have
the
it,
We were
worst.
like a half hour away by this
It
point.
can't be
So
me.
we went
I'm
back
running the thing.
and
So,
It can't be
And
me.
wait
of the
like-
stories you
Yeah.
heard, it's all-
and the guy just totally changed his story.
And
by
he
the
was
third
like, well,
time.
everything in life is optional.
Yeah.
And we were
Well, do you
like,
think he's working
Because
on
it's like-
What?
That's why you-
Yeah.
Reality's dealing
Oh, yeah.
oh,
sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
system.
Everything in life is optional. I'll
And
never forget that.
when we were
Wow.
second in line,
Lose
this couple in
being a
front of
person.
us, they had
Or the
just like
mailbox
gotten
is
this
full or
received this
whatever.
devastating
We're
news
not
that
set up.
probably the same thing. Their bills
The
would be
sales
twice as
department in
expensive as they
they
were
didn't
expecting.
There
And
are
they just kind of like
actually
shrugged their
not
shoulders and
mailboxes.
walked off. And I was thinking like, they probably do that all the time.
Yeah, that's how
They
you
just
grow
scam
your business.
everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not set up.
It was some like, it was like
How do you grow your
box
business?
rent.
I've never heard
Yeah,
of
yeah.
It's almost like they never
I hate them so
planned
much.
that anyone would
I hate
actually
them.
get to this point.
And well, when my
Yeah.
boss,
Yeah.
that's why
Okay.
the owner,
Oh my
Sam
god.
is
he
still
didn't
here.
relay that message when you know your sales department does not have a mailbox.
We should have.
He said,
They're
I
gonna
can't
charge you
have
$550.
one
Yeah,
on
worst
Saturday,
customer
because
service
I'm sure
problem,
he's gonna be
GDN.
just going
Here we
off
go.
when they did not set up their phones.
The best or worst?
Yeah.
Worse.
Worse.
That's probably was. They've been
Worst. The
growing
last
at a pretty
worst
good
customer
exponential
service.
rate.
The recent one. But I
Because we've
mean,
been growing. We're
it's-
one of their
all
largest
of it's my
customers, so
fault.
they've been growing with us
Um,
and then picking up
it's under
other
rental property.
accounts, and that's
And,
probably what it was.
Yeah.
They probably did.
my tenants
But the excuse from
blower
the
went out
should have got a hold of me.
last
We've
week of
gone through
September,
a lot of changes.
and it was so hot.
That's why
so
you're
I called a
handling
guy
my
that
laptop. Because
that
we're
knew
going
from
through
around the
change,
way.
so
I was like, hey,
I
man, need this
don't
AC
understand how
fixed.
that's
What's up?
my problem. And then
Came out, fixed the AC.
It's not my problem. It's getting
Well, he's down there.
Yeah.
looking at
because there were documents
the,
that I need to look at,
furnace for
sign, and send off
the
that
other unit.
I couldn't access.
And this thing's from like 1960.
You can explain that to my boss when
but
you
it
go why
runs like
why
a
don't I
drum.
have them at 5 o'clock
Cuts out-
tonight?
cuts off.
Call them.
Yeah.
So, he's like,
So I'm
hey,
just
man,
curious, as
I
I'm
can
I'm
get
trying to
you-
think like
I can
of
get you a really
threads in all of our
efficient
stories. Are
separate
most of
file.
our stories like
And I was
through
like, all
the
right, I like
phone
the deal,
or
like anybody
through
else, right?
online interactions? Like yours is. Yours is on the
Mine was
phone.
on phone.
Yours was in
It
person.
was like not too far from here, just around the corner.
Yours was
It
in
like,
person.
Mine was
in
morning.
person.
Okay.
It was shady.
So it's,
I should have known.
it's not even necessarily like one type of thing. Wow.
But I was like, you know what, $700 that's a pretty good price, So
That's a really good price.
I'm gonna roll with it.
Bad in-person service a lot of times has to do with
So he gets to my house that night.
someone just
He
ignoring
starts working out.
you
He's
or
like, you know
something.
what,
Oh,
I'm gonna
they
get
told
to
me.
it now, but
Yeah.
fine.
Just be
And I was like,
busy
you know
with
what,
their
time
own
to
thing.
pull outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what I wanted was out.
Pull
So
my
they
own
didn't even
furnace.
ask me, what
Probably
I wanted.
scrap
What I
it.
want was there. He was
So
just wanting
over
to
the
put
next
everything
3 weeks,
There's a line that
just
I would
like
like to
we had
wipe
a
out
really
from
cold couple weeks in October.
service.
Yeah, remember that.
um,
And that's like,
which is, may I help the next person? Because
So,
usually the
we would
person who
agree on a
says it
time,
is
and
looking right
I
at
would
you,
go home
and you're
afterwards. I
obviously
would
the
basically
next
check my
person,
schedule.
and they don't
I'd be like, "All
say,
right, Rick,
may I help
I'm gonna be
you?
there at 5:30.
It's,
He's like, I'll be there by 6.
May I accomplish the next
6
thing I
o'clock,
need to
come
accomplish?
yeah, exactly.
8:30.
Yeah.
It's like, hey
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I've just been working all
That's
day.
a pet peeve.
So this went on.
Wow.
Long story short, he ran off with my money.
Man.
No.
Yeah, so I had a
Well,
furnace.
when
there.
they've
And he
decided
scrapped your
which one.
furnace.
Scrapped my furnace, so I ended up paying. a
You said you weren't
to
going to
just
film
do
me
what I
eating.
should've.
Oh, I did.
Right.
For the record, I'm very sorry that I just filmed JD
Right.
eating.
That's your
He probably made some money scrapping that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was it.
We're just making sure that we.
I know, my notes are pretty.
I think he has the best story. I think that's the best worst story. You guys have a best worst story picked out? Yeah? All right.
Sure.
Let's share it. You want to share your best worst story?
Sure. So Maria and I, we went to Miami, Florida for our 1 year anniversary last summer, and my mom, as an anniversary gift, got us a rental car for the couple days we were there, and it was going to be like $200 or something like that. And we had waited in line for like an hour to get the rental car, and it was some no-name rental car company that was offering some big discount. And so we get up to the guy to help us out and check us out. He said that there were all of these, that's like the base fee. What we were thinking was going to be the all-encompassing fee. And there's all of these like laws and regulations that we have to comply with. And so it's really going to be like $500 or $550. And
Oh, that's
We were
very
like,
different.
yeah,
what?
we went back and forth. We're like, man, I just don't think that's right. He pointed to this like plaque on the wall that was talking about, the laws or whatever in Florida. And he's like, no, it's like $550. And so finally we were, we had been waiting in line for an hour and we kind of just gave into it. And so we left and we were walking out and let my mom know since it was on her credit card. And she said, no, there's no way. So we went back in and got into it again with this guy. And he was adamant. He's like, no, this is what it is. That's the lowest you can absolutely do. And we finally left. And my mom ended up calling their headquarters, their corporate office, and got into it with them. And they had said, no, it should have been the $200, price initially. And so we were like 45 minutes away. We had to turn around, go back, wait in line again. And this guy had completely changed his story and telling us that everything in life is optional, and we just misunderstood. And he's a
No,
horrible
everything
person.
in life
Yeah.
is optional.
Yeah,
I was like,
he's a bad person.
Wow.
So
that was really bad.
yeah, it was frustrating.
All right, so we have duplicitous stonewalling car sale or car rental.
Yep.
All right, Chad, you were for our other group.
That was it was actually today. My new laptop came in for work and they sent no information about it. I can't get in, no administrator password, it's not even set up for a network, nothing. I'm like, okay. I have reports I have to actually print off and sign and get sent to my boss by 5. So about 2 o'clock I called, got the infamous, please leave your name and number. It goes roughly to our lovely system, the exact words, lovely system that will be dispatched to one of our help desks in the personnel. So I hung up and I'm like, yeah, I'll just call back. And went to the warehouse and did something, came back, called again, got the same thing. But then my senior service tech, got this brilliant idea. He goes, well, it's the lovely numerical system, isn't it? I said, he goes, 1 for customer service, 2 for this. I said, yeah. So let's hit 2 for sales. Perfect. We'll get somebody and they'll just transfer us through. We're their biggest clients. They'll know us. Goes and rings and rings and rings, and then it finally comes up going, thank you for calling so-and-so's sales department. Please leave a message at the tone, and we'll get back to you. Here we go. It goes to the tone, and then it comes up with the wonderful message of this voicemail box has not been activated. So I sit there and going, this is a sales department of our IT consultant company that handles everything. I goes, okay, fine. Well, then I went and I did the help desk again, got the voicemail, hung up. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm going to try the accounting department. Somebody in accounting, they collect money, has to answer. So I get one. They have a voicemail phone. I'm like going, okay, this is ridiculous. So I called my boss and I told him. And he goes, give me 5 minutes. Next thing you know, my phone's ringing from the consultant company that does it, from their senior director of their customer service side, help desk. And he's like, well, I'm so sorry. We've been going through a lot of changes with growth. I'm thinking, and I flat out told him, I just can't get this funny look. And I put him on speaker, and my service techs were losing it because I was like going, well, not my problem you're growing. Actually, we're helping you grow. So really, it's not my problem. But I said, you sent me a laptop that has no information for me to get into. And I have reports due at 5 o'clock. No, we understand that. You're sure there's nothing in the box? It came in the bag that was wrapped in originally when it was brand new. Nothing. It didn't even come in a box. What do you mean it didn't come in a box? It didn't come in a box. It got handed from UPS overnight to me in like shrink wrap.
Oh.
Are you kidding me? No. He goes, well, what's the number on it? I gave him the number that's linked to us, and he goes, it's not even in our system. I said, well, you have until 4:45 to get this fixed. I'm going to hook it up to the network, and you better figure it out because I have no way to help you. And I did. I hung up the phone. Hour and 12 minutes later, I get a phone call. We finally broke it. We got it. You all hooked up. Put in your password, please. I did. And he goes, thank you. And I called my boss and told him. He goes, well, I called the owner of the company. I have his direct line. I get that lunch with him Saturday. He is going to have a fit. He's going to be having a field day with him because he actually called. I didn't say this part in it, but he actually called to talk to somebody in sales. And that's what drives your business is sales. He said, I can't wait to talk to him. Because he said that. And so it's, you were trying to link it of how many people were in person and how many people were like over the internet or on the phone. It was half and half. It really doesn't matter. I mean, you get the worst customer service in the world face to face, like you did with the gentleman that had no clue what he was doing. He just was probably throwing out there and said, just point to the plaque. I used to work in restaurants for 27 years, and that was the infamous, well, it's, don't point, okay? That plaque doesn't mean nothing to this poor lady that's going, well, this is what you're, no, that's the plaque, read it, please. No, it doesn't work. It does not work. And then, of course, to have a customer service side where you can't even leave a message.
That happens more often than you think.
Yeah. Yep.
So Vince, any like learnings as you heard a bunch of these stories
Yes.
and all that?
So I think the through line just hearing both of these is just obviously frustration. Because I think the main you're feeling that incompetence in terms of on the other side of here, what you're just describing that frustration as. So I think that's the main thing. So I think thinking of that, like what you're feeling, like you have obviously had a report that was due at 5. You had a deadline that you were trying to get done. You guys were on your honeymoon, and right? Is that what you're saying?
Anniversary.
Sorry, anniversary. Yeah. And you guys had a place to go, right? A destination.
Right.
And both of your stories is like you have somewhere to be, something to do, some deadline, and now someone is in the way of that. So that's something that I want you guys to. That's why I say think of the emotion that you feel because it's a lot of what we're going to talk about today is in terms of customer services. How do we feel that?
Great. Thanks, Vince. So let me get this set back up here. And yeah, we wanted to begin this training by really spending a bit of time thinking about like why even talk about this? Like we're at a church and we do kids ministry. We're involved in kids ministry. Why have a training that's about customer service? Like no one walks up to Kids Club with a $5 bill saying this pays for Kids Club today. It's not a transactional thing, or I would hope it's not a transactional thing. So why would we spend this time talking about customer service? And I believe that the degree to which we offer good customer service to folks who go to Crossroads, I think it indicates something spiritually. I think it indicates a lot spiritually, actually. But to take a few steps back, can anyone in this room recite from memory the Crossroads mission statement?
Close.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could probably get close.
Okay. Well, get the engine started. So just start with whatever words you got.
We're here to create a fun environment where we give children a message of God.
That's Kids Club.
Yep.
So what's Crossroads? Let's do
Oh,
Crossroads.
I'm sorry.
First.
Connecting seekers to community of
Community of Christ followers.
Give out free coffee.
All right, so the Crossroads mission statement is we are here to connect seekers with a community of growing Christ followers who are changing the world. So the operative point that we focus a lot on is connecting seekers. We'll talk a bit about that today. It's interesting. Sometimes I hear a growing community of Christ followers, which implies that the community is like multiplying out, numbers are growing, but it's actually a community of growing Christ followers, which then puts the emphasis on the individual, not numbers. Like all the numbers in the world are great. Is each person growing? Like, because if not, like, let this all fall to pieces because it's not worth it, right? So before we get into like the nitty gritty of what we're going to talk tonight, like, let's just set as a baseline, we are here to grow as individuals, as a community. Like, the numbers following or not, fine. Like, when I sit down with Jesus knee to knee at the end of all things, he is not going to ask me about my numbers. He's going to ask me about the people he led into my life and what I did, right? So we want to grow. We want to make sure that we're looking like Jesus in that process. All right, now Kids Club. Kids Club mission statement. Go ahead and get us going again. You said
Creating a fun environment where we could spread the news of Jesus. That's about as far as I can.
It's all right. It's been a snow day.
Yeah.
It's close. Who's got it? Who's got the Kids Club mission statement?
Safe is in there.
Safe is in there. Yep.
Kind of important.
That's safe, fun, Jesus.
And safe and fun environment.
Man, I'm so glad we're doing this. All right.
Yeah.
Didn't know we were going to be.
Kids Club mission. We create fun, welcoming, and safe environments for kids, families, and volunteers to experience God and grow in their faith. What we're doing tonight is, hopefully this is a fun, welcoming, and safe environment for volunteers to experience God and grow in their faith. But when we are really firing on all cylinders, we're doing all of these things all at the same time. And this usually happens on weekends, right? We've got kids in our spaces, we've got volunteers, families are coming through. When all of these things are happening, we're really firing on all cylinders. Now, the thing that I pay attention to here is there is never the word or. It is and. So fun, welcoming, and safe. We can all remember as kids being in environments that were really welcoming and safe and zero fun was going on. We can also remember situations we were in where it was very fun and very welcoming and zero things were safe, right? We want to make sure we're doing all of those things at the same time. So that's what we're going to do. And the idea for KC201, just in general, came out of what if we looked at fun, welcoming, safe, and kids, families, volunteers, made that like a tic-tac-toe kind of matrix, and just do a training on where these things intersect. So tonight, we're focusing on welcoming families. That's part of how we are making sure that we're staying sharp on our mission. The way we're going to do that is we wanted to create a training that would address questions you guys actually had. So when you RSVP'd for this, we asked, what questions do you have? And some of you were like, I got no questions, I'm fine. I'm just here to learn, which is cool. And some of you asked some of these questions. So how can I help and grow more in Kids Club? Community of growing Christ followers, right? We want to make sure we're growing. Is there a suggestion system for upgrades and changing ideas? We'll get to that. When someone adds a guest, is that permanent? Should you inform parents if kid is an aggressor? Also, how do room leaders communicate with parents, if at all? Is there anything I can do when rooms are at capacity? Most of the folks in here, I think, are welcome team volunteers, yes?
Less.
Oh, really?
Might be less.
Okay. Well, hey, that's great, because we'll address some of those things as well. Would more kids be allowed in if I went into a room? And finally, what's the vision for volunteers who are leaders? If we don't get to it in the prepared stuff, we'll come back to it at the end, and we'll make sure that we get some of these questions asked. All right. Tonight is roughly broken up into 3 parts. First, we're going to focus on basics of customer service. We've got some video content. If you're watching online, if you go into the description underneath this video, it'll have links to the actual videos that we're watching, so you don't have to watch it all through here. That would be weird. All right, so we'll do that. That'll be about 45 minutes, and we'll have about a 5-minute break after that. Then we'll go into the nuts and bolts of how to welcome a new family. That's mostly for welcome team volunteers, but it's helpful for room volunteers to know as well, so you know what has a new family and a new kid experienced right before they arrive. And then we'll do a Q&A, and the 4 of you who are tuning in live, you guys can chat in questions. Just look off to the side, and there's an option to do that. If you're watching it in the future, the questions will be really good, and I hope they're the same questions that you've got. This is still kind of weird, so sorry, I'm still trying to figure this out. All right, so the first thing I wanted to begin with, we're going to talk about customer service. We need to learn from the best. And I know that Crossroads thinks we're the best at everything, but we're actually not. For my money, I think an organization that is known for their customer service, and their loyalty, and the way they show love is Chick-fil-A. So we're going to watch a really quick instructional video that they show to their employees as a way to train them. Vince, do you mind hitting the lights? And then afterwards, we'll react to the video. This is kind of a heavy 3-minute video there. But what reactions do you have to what you just saw?
Everybody's in it. you have no idea what the people's story is when they come up to interact with.
Yeah, the way I process that, I mean, just now watching this again, I've seen this a few times, but I think about if that's true for people walking into a place where they're just hungry for a sandwich, what made them walk into church? You know, that gets me thinking. I didn't mean to get emotional just now, but
Crossroads is the first place that ever taught me this lesson. To just seeing people's stories, a lot of them from stage, but then eventually in community. I don't know, I guess I just had a superficial idea of people and relationships before getting to know that.
Well, that's an interesting point, because when some people come into Crossroads, see all this activity, all these people, it could be the loneliest place in the world if you don't know. So making a connection with people is very important.
particularly if you've heard things about big churches where it's just anonymous, like you can't connect there. Yeah. I know when I first walked in here, my thought was, this is a mall. Like this is what a mall feels like, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't meet people at the mall.
Yeah.
You know? Any other thoughts? Cool. So to begin, like we want to set as a foundation, not just things that we know from Chick-fil-A, but we can actually find a lot of this stuff in scripture as well. So can anybody look up on one of your handy mobile phone devices, if you got one, or if you have a Bible with you? Can anybody look up Leviticus 19:33 to 34? If you got it, just say got it, and then we'll assign the next one. Who's going to look up Leviticus?
I can grab it.
Thank you, Sam. Who will look up Matthew 25:35 to 45?
I can do Matthew.
All right, thanks, Andy. And what about Genesis 1:26 to 28? Got it. Thanks. Sam, do you have Leviticus yet?
I believe I do.
Okay. Can you read that for us nice and loud?
I don't think I do.
Take the calf.
Sorry. Talking about you. Okay. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Yeah.
Yep. The word foreigner is often translated as stranger or visitor in other translations as well. Does anybody have Matthew?
Yeah, I got that. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. To 45. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick in prison or go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. For when then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not look after me. They also will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or a sick, or in prison, and did not help you? And he will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of those, the least of these, you did not do for me.
And JD, do you have
Yeah. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on it."
Cool. Thanks for reading, guys. So let's work backwards from what we just read. So first in Genesis, God creates people, and every single one is made in His image. Like, we could stop there and do a whole customer service training on, are we treating every single person we interact with like they are made in the very image of God, right? But further, He says, be fruitful and multiply. How do people multiply? They create kids, families, right? So these families, every single person, newborns, parents, everyone in between, is made in the image of God. And by existing, they are doing what they were meant to do. Like, they are being creations, right? And learning from Leviticus and Matthew, we know that the way that these individuals who are in the very image of God, beyond the image, Jesus makes that connection of, this is me. Like, the way that you treat people is how you're treating me. If I'm hungry and you give me nothing, it's as if you gave me nothing. And in Matthew, he talks about the everlasting impact of that. Certainly for other people, but also for us. Something that's haunting to me about that particular passage in Matthew is the people on the left and the right in the, not politically, in the verses there, they are both saying the same stuff to Jesus. It's the end of time, and they are both using the same language. They know how to talk. Jesus was concerned with, how did they walk it out? How did they actually take people in? How did they actually take care of people? And it's not a New Testament thing. This is something that God cares about way back in the Old Testament. Welcome the stranger, welcome the foreigner, welcome the visitor. So, I mean, it matters to God, it matters to Jesus, and it should matter to all of us. And we know some of these things. So we've said this before. I think Brian has said it a few times from stage. We say every number has a name, and every name has a story and is known and loved by God, right? We've heard that. We've heard that every parent and kid who comes to Kids Club is made in God's image. Like, we kind of know that. Like, especially if you've been around the Bible a bit, you know that. And the way we welcome them in and serve them matters. But here's the question: are we doing it? Are we actually doing this to the best that we possibly could? I think, to a large degree, the answer is yes. But there is that room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. And I think the answer is empathy. Empathy is kind of a buzzword these days, but I think that if we really understand what empathy is, and if we can center on that, that's key for us. So we're gonna watch another video. This is by the esteemed Dr. Brene Brown, who, man, if you ever get a chance to listen or watch or read anything that she's done, she's incredible. And she talks a lot about vulnerability and empathy. I think Chuck maybe played this video a few weekends ago. I don't remember why. Doesn't really matter. But what she does here, she goes into what's the difference between empathy and sympathy. We often think that we're empathizing, but actually we're sympathizing. So let's pay attention to this.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy?
Yeah.
Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, No. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, "I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me." Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
All right. So any takeaways to that? Maybe any takeaways that are connected to the Chick-fil-A video, or anything else that we've talked about so far?
Sympathy is a lot easier than empathy.
Yeah.
that I'm taking away. And it's, you want to do something nice for someone if they're feeling down, and it's easy to be sympathetic. It's hard, and you have to connect if you have empathy, but that's truly, I think, the better way. That's the best thing to do.
Yeah. I often think about empathy through by thinking about something that C.S. Lewis said. It was in one of his books that isn't as famous, but he said that friendship is the moment when one human being turns to another and says, "You too? I thought I was the only one." Like that shared experience, But yeah, it's a lot harder than like, "Oh, I've never dealt with that. That sounds rough,"
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts here? We're going deep into the emotional side because I want us to make sure that we're comfortable enough talking about like feelings and stuff because of where we're going with this training tonight. Right.
Yeah, like shout out some feelings or emotions you're feeling right now. Like for example, for me, just watching these two initially, my initial reaction is, "Oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. Like how can I do these things? Like how do I have the capacity to be empathetic and to know someone's story, get to know their story, and run a weekend, like and connect with volunteers and connect with families." So I think initially when I watched this, I'm like, that's overwhelming. So share, like, say out loud, because I think there's this practice of sharing some emotions of like you guys know.
I think it's easy, especially on a weekend, because it's like so short. It's an hour and a half and it's over. It's so easy to go more of the sympathy because it doesn't take as much time. And it's oh, I'm really sorry that happened. And then you just move on instead of really feeling that with that person. I think it's a lot easier to do because it just doesn't take as much time.
I think for and speaking like in a kids club context, I think you're right. Sympathy is, it's quick. But, I can remember situations in kids club where a kid has said something really, really heavy, and almost not even feeling equipped or in a position to even say something that, it's like I could say the wrong thing because like I don't know, like maybe this isn't the right thing to say to this kid, and so you kind of just like, give them a nudge and like, "Oh man, like we'll discuss that, or let me know how that goes." And I feel like every time that happens, you're missing an opportunity to have some sort of impact. But I don't know if anybody else feels that way in kids club. Sometimes we're just like, "Man, this kid just said something that's like really intense," and I don't quite know how to react. You know, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about when we watch that.
I've had that, and I've been in that situation, and almost not. I don't know what to do actually, because there's 20 other kids there, and I'm got to get up and either do a presentation or whatever, and don't feel like I have the time or the wherewithal to address exactly what was said. One of which is the kid's like, hey, you know, I've asked, you know, hey, what's one thing that was cool that happened? And one kid said, I just got adopted this week, and he was really excited about it. And I was like, whoa, you know, great. I didn't know what to do with that. You know, I felt like he deserved more than great.
Great, we're gonna play Simon Says Now.
Yeah, exactly. It was like that. And I was like, man, that kind of stinks. But I'm with you.
Yeah.
I often feel the tension of, but I have 15 things to do, like, and they're all like they all have to happen now.
Yeah.
You know, and I hate to acknowledge it in this way, because I'm in leadership, like I'm supposed to be the expert or whatever, you know, or I feel that anyway. But what I am doing is saying that my task is more important than you know, or my 15 tasks are more important than this connection right here. And when I say that out loud, I'm like, but I don't want to be that guy, you know, like I don't desire that at all.
I'm sure a lot of people are better at this than I am. I've been kind of bumbling through it with WizKids, with my WizKid. But I'm just finding that trial and error works. Like the first 5 times, I don't handle it right, but gradually you get some like template, or I won't say script because every situation is different, but some template for how to get into, you know, a better conversation or how to react better.
Right. And what
there's hope for
and,
people like
well, and what I hear kind of buried in what you just said was there's repetition there. Like there's relationship there. Like there's a regularity to it, you know.
That's true.
That's good. Cool. Well, the next thing that now this we're going to go into the last part of this section here. Again, talking about just basics of customer service in terms of empathy and everything. We did Vince and I did an interview kind of video a few months ago. And it just now occurs to me that this might be weird for us both to be in the room watching ourselves and making other people watch ourselves. But Vince goes into what his background is prior to coming on staff at Crossroads and in Kids Club. And like I continually learn from Vince, and I continually learn from this video. And if you've been wondering, like, why are we talking so much about empathy? Why are we talking so much about feelings and everything? How does this connect to what we do, like welcoming families and stuff? This video will accomplish that. So we'll watch this. After this, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll get into like some real Kids Club, tangible, specific stuff. Right?
Hey, welcome to Pro Tips, where you put more into and get more out of serving in Kids Club. Today, we have a special extended video interview. This is Vince. He leads our support and operation teams. And before that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you did before coming on staff at Crossroads?
I went to school at Ohio State, and I was an accounting major. So a lot of my background was around numbers. However, I figured very quickly that wasn't my thing. But what that allowed was that I got a land for the job with Target. And it was all about, we call it ETL GE sales floor. So all that meant was
I know nothing about what that means.
So ETL is just this fancy word for executive team leader, which is a fancy word for basically assistant store manager. Basically, everything in the store, whatever happens in the store, is my responsibility.
How many employees, when you walk into a typical Target store, how many employees would be there normal weekday?
50 to 60 team members, so just a normal day.
Gotcha.
Like nothing crazy.
So really, anything that a customer would experience from the moment they got to the parking lot, went through the store, bought all the stuff, to the time that they left the parking lot, was part of your responsibility?
Correct. So what the parking lot looked like, what the carts looked like, to what the restrooms looked like. So to how does it feel when you go in, like through the lighting, the cleanliness. That was all my domain.
And did you enjoy that work? What was that like for you?
It was very humbling because a lot of, by the time I heard anything, it was probably like the worst of the worst. So I learned very quickly what not to do and what to do. And I guess right before that, right after Target, when I left, I worked for down at CityLink with changing gears.
So it's neat as I'm listening to your story, I'm connecting the dots of how God prepared you for the role that you're in now.
And now here in Kids Club as the Kids Club Operations Director, it's basically both of those things melded into one role. So it's definitely, you said, like God was clearly kind of giving me snippets of things of leading here.
So then as you think about the same kinds of things you thought about at Target, thinking about the experience somebody has in the parking lot through all the stuff that they encounter in the building through the time they leave the parking lot, help us to understand what's going on for that family or what's going on for that parent.
Yeah, that's a good question. The first one's obviously the parking. I think parking can be really confusing when you come to a place like this. Oh my gosh, where do I park? Where do I go? So let's say they park their cars and let's just say it's Johnny, Caroline. They got to figure out how to get Johnny and Caroline out of the car and then basically which entrance do I go into. So they're going to feel probably a little bit rushed because they're trying to figure out where to go and get there on time. So as soon as they walk into the building, massive amount of people. Like if you walk into atrium, there's a lot. So they got to figure out where to go from there. Our Kids Club sign is pretty big, but you can't see it from all angles.
So let's say a family makes it through the parking lot. They do feel a little bit rushed. They're looking for signs. They're looking for people who can help them. What would you want for them to experience? What would be your ideal first impression from a Kids Club point of view?
The most ideal thing I think we can do as a Kids Club team is think of it as Kids Club is our home, and these are guests that are coming. When I was at Target, is that we didn't call our customers, we call them guests because they're guests coming into our store. We've got our check-in machines, right? Our new family area that we've redone so that way it feels more welcoming. And we don't want to stand behind those things, beside those things, because those things are those computers are tools for us to use, not things for us to make. So the most ideal thing we can do for these new families is that we're greeting them as they're hitting the carpet. We're there waiting for them, giving them high five, cheering them on or whatever, and just say, hey, my name is Vince, and welcome to Kids Club, and I'm here to help you today.
Yeah, as you're describing, trying to make it feel like your home, I'm thinking, what would be the equivalent if I stood behind a piece of furniture at my home and was trying to welcome people? That would just create some distance. It would create like an us and them kind of feeling.
So they're already feeling anxious. So for us to stand behind a counter or have our hands crossed, or if we feel a little you stay on that side, the families can feel that. I think that's the main thing. They're already very much on guard. We want to create as much of a welcoming space as possible.
So Vince, clearly you are the expert on empathizing with a guest, trying to imagine what is a family seeing, feeling, experiencing. What are ways that I can make sure that I'm giving a welcoming first impression as possible?
Golden rule that I always go by is it's not about you. So what does that mean practically? Let's say a family comes up to you, or if it's a parent or someone that is just upset and they're expressing all their frustrations on you. There's almost nothing you can say that can cheer them up. I think naturally we feel like, oh, we're responsible. We need to respond in a way that can help them or fix that. When in general, it's just not about you. It's something that's going on in their world. So the biggest thing I go by is just give them grace. When it comes to even volunteers, same thing. A volunteer, because we always say we work in pairs here. We never work alone. So if you're in a room with another volunteer and maybe it's just you're just feeling this bad vibe or it's just not going well. Again, it just goes back to they're not doing it towards you on purpose. There's something probably going on.
Yeah, and that's a good word too, because I think my default when I'm in situations where I feel like somebody might be projecting or somebody's upset about something is to think it is all up to me to try to either fix them or try to fix their situation. And sometimes all the person needs is for somebody to say, I understand that this has been rough, or I understand this is hard.
Oh, I'm really sorry about your experience, right? They don't need you to fix it. They just want to feel heard in the moment. And then you kind of just obviously do your own kind of analysis of how do we escalate this.
Say a little bit more about that that word escalating. So, what does it mean to have a situation escalate? And do we want things to escalate, or do we want them to de-escalate?
They're already escalating the situation because they want to feel heard, right? So when let's just say the status quo is right here, and they're basically now expressing their frustration or their anger or their fear or their anxieties, they're pretty much escalating to here. So what you need to do is not overmatch them. You don't need to correct them. It's just you match them where they are, have them share their feelings, and eventually as they're sharing their feelings, it's just going to de-escalate on its own.
You want to match left brain to left brain and right brain to right brain. So if the left side is logic and strategy and rules, but the right side is emotions and feelings and wins. When a person is expressing emotions, like you need to match right brain to right brain. I need to match the emotion as opposed to trying to impose logic onto somebody's feelings. Because if you're going through something horrible or something sad, the thing that we hate the most is when somebody's like, yeah, but well, logically it's not that big of a deal, you know, or something like that. So that's helpful to know how to de-escalate a situation. What's another thing we should keep at the front of our minds?
Another thing I kind of live by is what I've learned from my chart days is looking the part. So that kind of, what that technically or tailored looks like is wearing a uniform. So for example, if I don't no longer work at Target, but if I walk in with red and khaki, I always get asked by someone, hey, can you help me find this? It's just, everyone knows when you walk into a Target store, it's red and khaki. Any store branding that you go to, like they have some kind of uniform. And what does that look like for Kids Club? It's our Kids Club volunteer shirts. So that way when families walk in, they know exactly who to go to. They just know that, oh, if I see a Kids Club shirt, they're part of the Kids Club.
Now, is a shirt the only thing that we can do to kind of be a team, or what else would go into that?
So one of the other examples of how you can look the part of operating as a team is, let's say an example of in a room, we always operate in pairs. So we always want to there's 2 volunteers in a room. So let's say you're the only volunteer in the room and you've got a line, you're waiting for your second volunteer to come in. You kind of have 2 ways that you can express your emotions, whatever. You can express that, oh yeah, I can't believe they haven't sent anyone yet, you know? Or it can be, oh, I'm so sorry for your wait, someone will be right here. And you can just go right outside the door, just like, hey Johnny, nice to see you, and start high-fiving them. You're pretty much giving them 2 very different emotions at that point.
Yeah, if I think about the times I've been in a restaurant, and I'm not experiencing great service, a lot of times the worst thing the server can do is blame the host stand, or blame the kitchen, or blame the manager. Because it makes me feel like they're not operating as a team. I don't think I'm going to get what I came for.
Yep. And then just the other thing I like to add is, I think, especially that we're working in a church, right? There's spiritual warfare everywhere we go. But I think even within the church, that's where the enemy really wants to create a division between us. Yeah. And how we express those emotions is we either are expressing kind of a unity or we're expressing more of a division. So if we're doing the, hey, yeah, they have figured it out, you're essentially allowing that division going between the family and Kids Club, or the family and the volunteer, or the family and Crossroads, and we don't want that. We don't want to invite those in. So.
Yeah. When conflict does come up, though, are there any do's or don'ts or things that we should all keep in mind as we're trying to figure out ways that we can work together?
People are either, what I call it is either they don't know or they don't care. So how does that play out practically? So let's say you're training a volunteer, so you have someone that's in the room with you, you're training a volunteer, and let's say there's a diaper that needs to be changed. They could either just do the thing without knowing what to do, right? They just don't know what the proper procedures are. Like, for example, like making sure that there's another volunteer that's in visual sight, make sure they wear the gloves, or like that type of thing, right? Like
these are just kind of like Kids Club rules.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example of don't know, right? Or there's a diaper that needs to be changed, that volunteer just like standing in the corner and knows the diaper needs to be changed, doesn't want to do it at all. I call it don't care. That doesn't mean that person's a bad person. It just means that that's something that is not on the forefront of their mind right now. It's just not something that their heart or their brain is telling them, you need to do this. So that's what I call don't care. So that really helps dictate I think how you deliver the customer service, because if it's someone that doesn't know, right, we deliver a little more information based. How do we deliver them on the information, the hows? If it's someone that doesn't care, you don't want to match them with information. You want to just give them grace. Like that, what they really just need is grace.
Another thing that I learned from you early on was using the word policy, or specifically trying not to use the word policy. Explain why.
If you're matching that family, typically you're de-escalating the situation. You're gonna want to help them, but again, that goes with how you're interacting with them. As soon as you use the word policy, again, you're escalating the situation, because what you're saying is, I can't help you. Whereas if you say, oh, I'm sorry, like that's not how it's supposed to be, then at some point you start caring a little bit about what they're feeling, rather than here's the policy, you deal with it.
Yeah, it's almost like you're saying, I care more about following my policy than serving.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I think this is really helpful.
Yep. And if I have to summarize all in one word, just show grace. In any customer service oriented situation, whatever it is, if you're representing Crossroads, you're representing the kids club, if you're wearing the uniform, just show grace. That's good.
Hey, thanks for watching this extended video interview with Vince. If you want more training, there's more on this YouTube page, and you can also go to the Kids Club website and get more training there. Thanks for watching Pro Tips.
Or you can come to KC201. Let's take a 5-minute break. So it's about 7:06 right now. Let's go to the restroom, get some more food if you like, meet someone new, and we'll be back at 7:11. Cool.
Chris, did you say this whole thing is going to be on the site?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's recorded or something like that?
Yeah, we're actually streaming live right now. We had 4 viewers before. We've got 2 at the moment. Hi, if you're watching the break, I don't know why. But yeah, the way this works is it's live right now. So there might be some people watching from home when we get here tonight. Okay. And then it lives on YouTube forever. So if you're thinking of somebody like on your team, or like you have a situation in a month or 2 and you're like, man, that video would be really helpful. Like the link lives forever. Just dig out the email and go to it, and you'll be able to find it there.
Cool. I wish I would have invited a couple of people from my room in here.
Yeah.
To this.
Well, one thing that we can do, I mean, this might be a do for you coming out of this if you still feel that way. At the end is like,
better.
Man, as a leader,
No.
like,
When's that?
you can carry the torch too. So like,
enough.
if you feel like, man, I want my whole team to
I
go
did
through
get a new
this.
assistant.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's get
It's a
coffee
third
or
one.
let's get lunch or something like that. I'm happy to give you my
time's a charm.
notes. Happy to give you the slideshow.
She's
any of that
doing
stuff.
really well.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you know, we're doing this in a
She
format
is
that's there's some room volunteers, some welcome team, and all
aggressive
that.
about.
But if you want to do one specifically,
I want to make your job easier. I want to make your job better.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what I'm about to say.
To be
it.
honest with you, I wouldn't mind doing this for my sales team.
no, fair enough.
I'm serious.
She's really about that.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things
So-
we ran into last time, so we're talking
I
about.
laugh. Sometimes we have some familiar.
We've done one about like how do kids play? How do
Bless
kids
her
have
heart, she's
fun?
really
What
sweet,
fun do
but I
kids play?
have to be very
Then we
specific
did one about
the instructions I give
Yeah.
her,
welcoming volunteers.
because she'll just do
Like,
what
how
I
do you build
said,
a team?
and I'm kind of like,
And we watched a video.
exactly. But she
You know,
goes
Andy
after it so aggressively, and
Andy
you know, yeah. So
We'll
that's a
talk
really
more
good
about it
thing.
in a bit.
So I will take,
He's
and she
he's a
is so
pastor
willing
of
to
a big
learn,
church
Mhm.
in Georgia,
and I will
Okay.
take that
and
above.
aside from what he's doing ministry-wise, he has a
Yeah.
leadership podcast.
So when they get
And
you a
he does
new
things specifically
assistant,
for
is that
leaders.
somebody internally, or
He's
do
like
they
a
get somebody
consultant to
outside?
CEOs.
She
He's
hired somebody else.
written books about
Stanley?
Sure.
And,
He's my boy. I will watch anything he does. I will read anything he writes. Like he's great.
so the
And
old
he's got a
one
video.
Is,
I'll send it to you when
sometimes he's
we're
in
done
there with
tonight.
me, sometimes he's not.
Mhm.
About trust
Sometimes
versus
he's in a different-
suspicion.
He's in another third grade room.
And we
So-
watched about half of it here. It's a pretty long talk, but he was giving it at a conference for people
Yeah.
in ministry. But there was a guy sitting right here
Has kind of support.
who, after watching it, was like, I'm going to take that to work.
Some
like,
people's work ethic.
The thing with trust versus
He doesn't
suspicion
call off
is
on Mondays.
whenever you have an experience that is different from what
just
you
think he
expected
has a
from
rough
that person.
week.
Like I expected this thing, but I experienced this.
It's like,
There's a gap. And and as leaders,
I
and
would never,
managers or
like, you know,
supervisors or bosses or coaches or whatever.
Whenever I see something like that,
We may
it,
have
like, blows me
emotional
away.
reactions to
Yes.
that,
You know?
but when it comes
Yes.
time to like
like, are you
others
kidding
or
me?
coach them through it
Yes.
or whatever, we actually
But,
choose what we
so,
put in that
yeah.
gap.
And
Our flesh tells us
he
he's suspicious.
trying,
They did
All
this.
women?
I guess,
Yeah.
to-
Sounds like a good excuse to
to
get
a
to
certain
our
degree.
Trust says
But,
what,
but yeah, like,
because I knew
I
we
hurt
had this
my back.
expectation,
What?
and like one of the examples he uses is, who do you
Yeah,
want to be?
we are.
Every time you fail to meet
he's in
expectations,
one of the other
they're
third
suspicious of
graders
you,
now.
or that
And,
they say things like, "Well, I'm sure there's a
because
good reason."
her
We did the whole
assistant,
thing because we've been.
He's
they
late today,
moved
Mom.
him to
I'm
do
sure
ISS.
something happened.
Okay.
Or he's late today.
So
I
he
knew
didn't have
he-
ISS.
you know,
before,
like, which
and
would you
finally
rather
she realized,
have?
Like, it's great. So
And
it's
the
not
truth
working out
is,
so much for us.
last week.
healthy
So he's doing
workers
ISS
attract healthy
But
people.
he doesn't have to do ISS every day.
Healthy people
If he's not doing ISS,
don't want
then
to
I have
be
the new one
suspected.
and the old one. in
A
my
healthy person
If he
wants
is,
you to trust
then
him.
I just have the new one.
But if we never trust them, we're like,
But yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
I'm
so
with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's
Like all our men.
it's amazing how like
Better.
Yeah.
And so
if it is
thank
true,
God
the gospel is
for
truth, that all wisdom
the help
comes from
that he
Christ,
just
like
sent
all of
me
that.
and I
Then
feel
of course,
her,
Yeah.
leadership and
Yeah.
evangelism, at the core of them, would have
still a rough
gospel.
room.
You know, like it's
That's
Right
crazy.
there. Oh,
like
one of
Chuck
my
would say
kids,
it's baked in. You know, like it's all.
my friend was like, I'm
Uh,
gonna take them
It was funny you did Chick-fil-A.
because your room is.
I was at
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A the other day, and
Okay.
I got carry out,
Go for it.
and I walked around to the side. You know, if you look behind where the cash registers are,
Emotionally
there's a
unstable.
little
Like,
cue.
your room
And the
is
cue
just
card. Did you notice that?
pretty damn so.
It has make eye
She's like,
contact,
I'm gonna take him.
make a connection,
And
be friendly, smile.
has
Or so I
that
can't remember the four
de-escalated
things around that
situation.
card, but it's right in front
There's
of the
still
Yeah.
cash register, and then behind it there were some other things about.
there's
you know,
these personalities where
I couldn't see what was on there. But the next time you're at Chick-fil-A, kind of look,
Really
look
like-
around the
Yeah,
cash register and see what they
man,
got.
if there's
Because the
an
service is there is
organization-
much better than any place else.
Like I would never expect that level of service from any other fast food. But when I go to Chick-fil-A,
That's
like
right.
good or bad,
No.
I expect someone to refill my
Lay low.
lemonade, like because they have trained me
Yeah.
to
I
expect.
might say something.
Yeah.
I have a friend.
No, it's funny. I was, in fact, my wife and I went
So,
to Atlanta
yeah.
for the Emory game. And we
There's that,
stopped at a
but nothing
Chick-fil-A.
like, no.
And there was a guy,
Just to be off. She's never.
Yes.
and he was saying, you know, I didn't want
Yes.
any pickles on
Did you
my
have yours already?
Anything.
It's yours
And
next
so
week.
he had, and he was
I
really
am
rude.
so excited.
So this, you know, lady took it back to the back.
But then I'm like, oh,
He goes, you just didn't take the pickles off.
sitting
She
there,
goes, no, and I give you an extra
weekend,
slice of
and
cheese.
But
And that's what you want.
Yeah.
And again, he was being rude.
I'm in.
But if I was a guy, and I try to put myself in his place,
Yeah.
you know, I hate pickles. I hate pickle juice. I do not like pickles. That's all I want is there's no pickles.
You got
Taints everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I don't want an extra slice of cheese. I just don't want any pickle. And so some people do. You get flustered.
We're getting ready to.
But you have to listen
He was
and
already
think.
like,
I don't want you to
look
spice
here.
But I thought it was interesting. He was rude. But I was thinking it's
like
learning
the
experience.
sympathy or the empathy question. Like, oh, it's dark down there. Do this.
No,
No, I was going to sit with me in the dark. You know.
Well, the plan was to stay right here.
No, but I thought it was interesting. Look behind there and see the little
I'll look
training cards.
We've been living off my
Friends, let's be back. Let's be back. Thank you for sticking with us online. We're back. We're going to, in order for us to have time at the end for Q&A, we're going to go through our next part rather quickly, but it's going to be all right. I'm going to welcome up to the stool Vince Lamb. We heard from him before, but he's got a story. We were talking earlier today about this session, and we just got to talking, and I was like, man, this is worth sharing. So, hey, have a seat.
Cool. Hey, everyone online. So yeah, I think one of the things that Chris was asking me to share is kind of the unique perspective that the timing of when I came on staff was the timing that we're expecting our first kid, James. So literally the week that I came on staff, I was there for a week, and then James was born. So he was born on Father's Day, so it was really special. But anyways, just even being on the staff side and meeting everyone and the staff leaders that lead the age group, like the nursery specifically. I knew Taylor, I knew Asha already, but even just the feeling of dropping off James for the very first time, like it is scary. Like it is so scary. If I could just describe like a feeling, an emotion, I think it's just, is he going to be alive? Like when I come back to pick it, is he going to be like, literally, is he going to be okay? Like that's the feeling. And then on that, couple that with as the guy, as a husband, I'm also like, I see how my wife is reacting. So is she going to be okay? Because I don't want to deal with the emotional fallout of what that could happen. So like that type of, so there's all those emotions when we dropped out James. So that gets me thinking like of all these first time families that are dropping off their babies. Like some of them are like week 1 or like day 3, they're dropping off their babies. Like, which those families, they usually already have multiple kids. It's very rarely a first time parent is going to drop off their kid with us when it's week 1, right? It's usually a couple months in. So I don't know, just having that unique perspective, I think is really important to understand. Like even when you're in rooms, like you might not like upstairs, like the K to 5th, it might not be as traumatic, but it's still there if it's a first time family that's never been to even, let's say, church, and that kid is walking that room for the very first time, right? Like just what is that feeling that kid has, right? So that was really real. And then the second thing that is very unique to me is that because I lead all the support teams as well, not just the weekend teams, but basically everything that you see in rooms. So when you're volunteering in rooms, is there diapers in there? Is there snacks? Is there lesson supplies? That is also my teams that prepares all of that during the week. So one of the unique things that I always get to hear about from my wife is, now that we have our second boy, our son, she still nurses, is nursing moms. I get all the feedback on nursing moms, like when they run out of diapers, when something is dirty. So my first reaction is like, oh, I can't get away from work. But then it gets me thinking like, this is a mom's perspective. Like when we talk about kids club space or fun, welcoming, and safe, right? Like that is a perspective of a mom that she uses it every single weekend. So I guess me thinking too of, even if you're in a room, you're walking through the carpet, the kids club space, what does our space look like? So if there's trash on the floor, is there spill on the wall? Like what do we do? Do we just walk right by it, right? Or do we pick it up? Do we let someone know, right? Like that's another unique perspective, I think, having just being fresh, new parents, and it's just, I get to hear all of it. So I thought that was kind of unique, and maybe that's why God put me here with my background. It's just having those fresh eyes on it. So that was it. Yep. Cool.
You can go into the next part, which is talking about welcoming new families.
Great. So
I'll hand these out.
So I'm sure we can have upload this doc online as well that you can see after this as well. But this main part is we just designed this little pamphlet of kind of, if you're a first-time family, what is the steps to get through? So just so you guys are aware. So step 1 is the greeting. So smile. I always say, what is your best crest moment? Like your best crest smile. So you guys can all practice here. Smile. Like smiling does something, like it literally scientifically releases endorphins in your brain to where it gets you giddy. It gets whatever, even if you're having a bad day, smiling is scientifically proven to basically lift your spirits higher. Okay, you have a better experience. So in the same way, if a family's coming in and they don't see you smiling, they're already feeling, again, like if I'm the first time parent dropping off James, if I walk in the room and you look terrified and you look overwhelmed, I'm not gonna want to drop off James, right? Like no way. If we looked overwhelmed, it's not happening. So smiling, huge. Body language is the same thing. So part of body language is, what does our body language look like? So when we talk about furniture, if we're behind a kiosk and just standing behind, like even this chair, if I'm presenting to you kind of like this, that's a very different experience than the chair behind, right? Just even little things like that. So when you're welcoming families and letting them into the rooms, like I love how upstairs there's literally physically no barriers. You're literally having the kids go in, but like even in rooms, if there's a kid that maybe doesn't want to go in the room, invite the family in with the kid, or like stuff like just little stuff like that to remove physical barriers could make a huge difference for a family and a kid. So body language, asking how may I help you, saying, oh, is this your first time here? That's they're already feeling antsy. They're already feeling kind of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like that's the main thing is they already feel lost. Asking them, is this your first time here? Just adds that fact of you don't belong here, right? So it's super important when you see someone that you don't know, hey, how may I help you? If they come up to you, how may I help you? Because what that allows is conversations. So asking how may I help you, it's very open-ended. You're inviting them in versus is this your first time here? That's a question, right? How may I help you is an invitation. So start with that with anything you say. And then responding, hey, you're in the right place. So again, everyone is already trying to navigate to Kids Club. If you're a first-time family, you made it here. Acknowledge, hey, you made it. You're in the right place. I've got you. And take it from there. So, gaining trust. So the next kind of, I always sum it up as the greeting, and then the second part is gaining trust. So again, these families are leaving their kids with us for over an hour, right? Like again, first-time parent, I'm leaving James with you for an hour in the nursery. Like I have no idea who you are. Like I know in terms of on staff, I know. And even then it's hard because I don't know what you're going to do during that hour. So during that entire time, like as you're checking in the family, like high fives, man, interact with the kids because the parents can do their thing, fill out the information, type in their information or whatever, interact with their kids because that's a glimpse that they get of what it's going to be like in the room. So it's especially important up front because by the time they make to the room, they're already going to have some reservations. But if we can just from the get-go, making sure that make them feel like their kids are safe, that's going to already win brownie points. And that's gaining trust. Eye contact, that's another big thing. We talk about body language. Looking someone in the eye and talking to them is going to make a big difference versus looking at a computer screen, looking at, off to the side. Not making eye contact is just going to, again, communicate you don't belong here. But when you make eye contact, it's a bit for connection. You're like, hey, I see you, and I'm going to make a connection with you. So that's what eye contact does. And then allergy-free, so that's just another simple thing, is just making sure that parents understand that we're an allergy-free place. So we have, obviously, goldfish and graham crackers, and that's why we don't allow other things outside snacks coming in, is that we want to make sure we're able to control allergy-free environment and communicate that to the parent. So that way they know. Because with nowadays, there's a lot of different things we don't know in terms of allergies. We want to make sure we communicate that. Chris,
anything in gain trust about, I'll repeat some old stuff from older Kids Club trainings. You can either correct me or endorse it. Mm-hmm. On gaining trust, Crossroads is a very big institution. It's very easy for us to appear like we're grabby for their information. Mm-hmm. What's your phone number? What's your email? We were trained long ago to say, when we took a phone number, just, we're not going to call you and solicit you, that kind of thing. This is just so, in case there was some reason we needed to contact you, later because of some incident in the room, we'd have a way to get in touch, or that kind of thing. So we reassure them that we're not just like harvesting their information. Mm-hmm. Same thing on email. It's like, can I have your email? This will cause you to get communications from Kids Club, but you can opt in or out of it.
Yep.
It's purely optional. Yep. And then kind of reassuring people. Do you endorse that, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So overall, I think how we're training our teams now is if the parent seems like they're concerned about the information, just let them know, like, hey, this is the reason why we use your phone number or have your email. But I think not doing that globally, I think we don't want to raise concerns if there really isn't any. So gauge it to where if a family's a little like, I don't really, like, why do you need my phone number and my address? Well, we use your address because we want to send you a new family mailer. Like, it's going to have a CD in it, and it's going to have like, hey, welcome to Kids Club. Email is strictly just so that way if there is, like, let's say, lice or bed bugs or whatever, we can send on mass email, things like that. So I would say case by case basis. I wouldn't globally say, hey, this is why we're taking your information. I don't think there's a need to.
So that's a change. Okay.
Yep. So it is a change. Mm-hmm. Good question.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily bring it up either. In the same way that, like, if I was at a restaurant and I'm serving you food, I wouldn't go, hey, just so you know, we didn't do anything weird to your burger. We're not going to. We have never done anything weird to your burger. It might just beg the question of, like, why are you telling me? Yeah. Of course, somebody asks, like, absolutely. But something we're finding more and more, like, as folks just get more comfortable with technology, it's like
they don't care.
If I want razors to come to me in the mail, I have to give somebody my address. you know, and if I want to be able to change it, like I give them my
True.
email, you know, like it's
Yeah.
getting more, I think folks are getting more comfortable with it. Thanks, Vince. I forgot to get slap bands. Oh, yes. Do you mind grabbing some? So slap bands are part of the welcoming a new family process, and they're a relatively new thing for Kids Club in terms of like our whole history. I think we've only been doing it for maybe a year and a half or 2 years. But the why behind slap bands, I think, is really, really captivating. And I'll just kind of explain briefly by sharing a story. So my dad was military. We moved around a lot, and I went to a lot of different kinds of churches growing up. And one of the things that I've changed a little bit over time, but as a child, I was very shy, very introverted. And often in church, the pastor would stop everything and go, "Hey, is there a new family here today? Is anyone new here today?" And we're like, you know, like just raise our hand. Sometimes they made us stand up. In moving around a lot too, I mean, as a kid going to a new school for the first time, I remember the day before 7th grade was when we moved to Omaha, and here I am like going to this brand new middle school. It's the day before is when we're moving in. And it was so new, and we didn't have our mailing address up to that point that I wasn't registered in the school system. So the first day that I showed up at this middle school, and middle school is a rough time to be a human being. But I show up, and I am in their system as the add-in. I'm the add-in. And it just frequently was calling attention to me being new. I am new. I haven't belonged here before. I've never been here before. And it was a pretty insecure thing. Now, these slap bands were created not by me at all, but in the same spirit. We wanted to know what is a way that we can communicate to volunteers that, hey, this is a new kid. But to the kid, I just have a slap band and I'm going to play with this all day. Like, what is a way that we can sort of have a signal, have like an internal kind of thing that tells us, like, hey, this is a new kid. There's a new kid in our room today. That isn't like telling, you know, saying over the kid as they walk in, hey, everybody, this is the new kid. You know, like it just saves a kid a little bit of that. We liken it a little bit to a scarlet letter. Like, it's just something that, like, it calls attention to a kid if we announce it, but this is a way that's a little bit more subtle. This is also why, if there are kids who have been around for forever and they see a slap band and they're like, can I have one? We're going to say no. Like, those are for new kids, you know, and they're not just for free for all. This is also part of how we track how many new kids there are. We can look at our inventory and go, so how many, like in 2018, how many new kids do we think came through our doors? Although it's, I think it's for 3 years old and up. Is that right? I think it's for 3-year-olds and up. We 2-year-olds and up? It says 2-year-old. Thank you.
Yeah, you read something.
Reading.
You read the directions.
Yeah, like we just don't want to advocate smacking babies. All right.
They get this at the info center when they check in.
Yes. Yeah. Now we do have a choice of color. Right now we've got green ones in this room. We also have blue ones and purple ones. All right. One thing I would say, this is Nate. He leads. Does he lead the whole welcome team? All right. So he leads the whole welcome team right now. He's volunteer. And I got to see him. This might have been on Super Bowl. I can't remember. There's not a lot of balloons. It wasn't Super Bowl. But he was given the slap band to this kiddo here. And the way he did it was so cool. Where Sam, stand up. So let's just pretend that you're shorter than me.
Sure.
All right. So what he did, like, I've seen this done a number of different ways. And it's not to point fingers or anything like that. But instead of like handing it like it's a bookmark and then making the kid like figure out like what is this? Because, you know, you can say it's a slap band, but it's like whatever. He was like, okay, now I've got a very special thing to give you. But you've got to trust me first. All right, Mom, Dad, is that okay? Yeah, okay, great. All right, Sam, got your hand. All right, are you ready? Ready. You sure you're ready? Okay. Ready? Let's count to 3. 1, 2. 3. And then he did it, and it was like around the kid's wrist, and it was this surprise and delight moment. Can't really see it in this picture, but like this kid was beaming afterwards because it was just like, it was surprising, and then it was okay. You know, like it was really fun. Thanks, Sam. Yeah. You can keep that if you want. Cool. So let's practice really quick. So just turn to the person next to you. Let's try to pair up in different ways. Because slap bands are one of those things that like it's tough to gauge. Like, am I harming? Like, am I doing it the right way? just practice doing it for a sec. And after we've done that for about a minute,
And we're spouses.
We'll come back. Yeah, there you go. All right.
You ready?
I'm Andy.
All right.
I think you got her. And you got the logo up.
Yeah. Hey.
All right. There you go.
That's the first time I've done that.
You're right in the middle.
Oh, look, I got you. I was trying to end.
I think it's way.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, middle.
Because we're doing it under sweat.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean,
Okay. There you go. That'll work.
JD should be the expert, right?
What's that?
You should be the expert. I mean, the 8th there doesn't get very many kids. 8th there doesn't get very many kids.
All right. All eyes and ears back up here. Good job, guys. Good job. Hey, if you're at the Welcome Center and you've got some time and you just want to practice, like you have permission to whip one of those bad boys out and just practice. Last part of welcoming a new family is it doesn't begin when it gets to when folks get to the carpet, but it also doesn't end when we give them their stickers. There's still a whole corner of the building that is kind of tough to navigate. So we want to make sure that we are being their guide. All right. What First Impressions, the other ministry here, the other big ministry in Oakley, what they tell people is don't give people the finger and not that finger. What they say is instead of going, you go that way, they say give the hand, right this way, follow me. Right. Again, small little thing. But if we're talking about customer service and serving people well, a single mom with a car seat and a 3-year-old pulling her all over the place, you pointing in a direction, that just feels so like distancing and overwhelming. But saying, hey, let me walk with you, maybe even taking the hand of the kid and like helping out. It's way more like when we say come alongside, we do mean that literally. Like come alongside a person and you kind of walk in their truth a little bit. So you want to be the guide. And as you go, remember those 3 parts of the beginning of our mission statement. You can tell them as you walk about Kids Club. And there's a lot of things that you may say during that time. But roughly, make sure that they get a taste of that Crossroads and Kids Club DNA as they're going. All right? So they're a seeker. Let's assume they're a seeker. You've connected with them. Make sure they know this is going to be fun, it's going to be welcoming, and it's totally safe for their kid. So you can explain the sticker system as you go. It's probably very critical that they know the sticker system just in case numbers go up in the auditorium or in case they want their child back in an hour and a half, right? You can also explain like, hey, there's going to be 2 volunteers, at least 2 volunteers in the room. Like we won't open the room unless there are 2 or more people in there. These folks are background checked, like there's a whole process. Like all of those things communicate to a parent who is wondering, have I come to the right place? Am I leaving my child with the right people? That yes, you've come to the right place. Like your child will be safe here. And like, especially if the kid is of an age where there's going to be lessons going on in the room, even if you don't know what the lesson is exactly, like I would even not even use the word lesson. I would just say there's so much fun stuff planned. There's games, there's music, like all of those elements are always there in Kids Club. It's part of who we are. And you can explain that to the parents as well. Quick word about why there's fun. I mean, kids should be having fun. I think most of us agree with that. The reason we want to make sure that kids have fun in Kids Club is the first question that new family is going to ask their kiddo when they pick them up is, did you have fun? And we want the answer to that question always to be yes. Because if they say yes, then the parent or the guardian moves on to the second question, which is, oh, what did you do or learn, right? And we want that conversation to keep on going after they leave the carpet, they leave the building, they get in their minivan, they're going off to their next thing. We want that conversation to continue. But if the answer to the first question, did you have fun, is no, then it's concern. Oh gosh, what did they do to you? Like what happened? You know, it's not about like, what did you learn? What was the fun thing that happened? It goes in a different direction. And so I think this is a pretty crucial point here, and it's detailed in this handout as well. But after the kids get dropped off, let's say there's 2 or 3, after everybody's in their rooms and everything, that is not when your job is done. If you're the guide, we need to bring them to the next place. And the next place for them is going to be service. But if we've just meandered all through the figure 8 that is Kids Club, and then we're like, all right, cool, enjoy service, and we walk right back to our post, we've abandoned them like in the forest. And now they're like, how do I get back out? So guide them back to service. If they came with a first impressions volunteer, like trade back off. But we want to make sure that we get them all the way back. And that's also an opportunity to continue talking to the parents. While you're trying to figure out the logistics of where kids go and, you know, this kid for that room, and make sure they have their sticker and jackets and backpacks and all that stuff, that's probably not the time to try to get to know the parent because their mind is going whatever. But once everybody's in rooms, things kind of settle. And parents, I've actually seen parents kind of do this, you know, like now defenses are down. Now it's time, like, so who invited you to Crossroads? How'd you hear about this place? You know, like that's the point to start asking those questions, and just do the bump and the set for service to spike it. All right. So what if they're pissed though? Like, what if they're so mad? Like, what if there are situations that came up that were out of our control, or maybe they were in our control, and it's just like, for whatever reason, like it didn't work the way ideally we wanted it to work. That's a real thing. Yes? Mm-hmm. Like we began this time by just mutually empathizing with, oh yeah, when your expectation doesn't match the experience you had, that's hard. And it's often the worst thing to be thrown into a system. You know, oh, you have a complaint. Well, there's a survey. Don't tell me about your survey. Like, I just want you to know that I'm upset. So just overall, how do you de-escalate stuff if folks are pissed, if folks are upset? Like, first of all, like they're allowed to feel how they feel. And we're probably not going to fix it with our magic wand. But there are things we can do to stay in the green light area where we're at least not just going to make it worse, right? First thing, remember what we've talked about with empathy. Like they're not doing it at you. They're going through something, and really this is a bid for, can someone just validate that I'm having this experience because it feels like I'm alone? Hey, I understand. Like that can be really difficult. What if they're late? Vince, what if there's a parent who's frustrated because they're late? And let's say they're a new family.
Yep. So one of the cool things that with this new check-in system that it does that the old one doesn't is that we can sign in families at any point on our admin machine. So those sign-in computers that where you punch in your phone numbers for families to use, those cut off 20 minutes into service because that's where lessons begin. However, on our admin side, which is all the computers on this side for new families, it basically ignores all of that. So that's where we designed that so that way for those situations with families running late, you can make that judgment call of, I'm going to do everything possible to help this family. You can make that call. But obviously the policy officially is 20 minutes cutoff. If it's a family that is regularly late every single week, that's just a conversation, right? Like that could be staff could have it, or do you feel like you know that family well enough? Hey, like I've noticed that you've been running late every week. How can I help you get your kids checked in on time? Like it starts as early as an hour, right? Like things like that. Like it's a bid for connection. So, but if parents running late, that's why we have a system in place where we can actually ignore cutoff.
Okay. Now, what that might mean is they may have just experienced being given an error message for 5 minutes at a kiosk, them trying to do it themselves, which, man, if I'm at IKEA and the thing isn't working and I can't find what bay to go to for furniture, am I the only one who's had that experience? No? All right. Well, if I'm trying to log on to Wi-Fi at a coffee shop and it's like not working and I'm getting frustrated that I can't do it, when I go to the barista, I'm in a bad mood, right? If a person does come to you and they've been trying and trying and trying, just realize, hey, there's a situation that's already going on. It's not your fault. Like, we can help. It's just that's what they've experienced so far.
Getting more descriptive error messages is still an opportunity for the software.
Yeah. Oops, looks like there's been an error.
Yeah. Like, what kind of error?
Yeah. Wanted to address, because this does happen with more frequency than I'm comfortable with in Oakley. We do have turnaways. That does happen. And a lot of factors that go into it, but most of it is outside of your guys' control. A lot of times it feels like it's outside of my control. We have room ratios for a reason. It's safety. It's based on kids' ages, and some of it has to do with legalities and liabilities and stuff too. There are sometimes we'll make an exception, but what do we do if there's a turnaway?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So a lot of times when you talk about why we always say don't turn away any families unless you call it, like radio it in. And the reason for that is sometimes we might have, I don't know, a third volunteer in a room where maybe we can shift them, but we sometimes can make room. Other times it can be depending on how the room is going. We might stretch ratios if that room has a really strong leader and that room is under control. So, like, for example, like a lot of times I go to the Thursdays, can you take another kid? Like, they're running a one's room, or Asha can take another baby, things like that. So you're gauging all that information all at once. Or if it's hey, if there's 3 staff working, 2 of us already in rooms, at that point it's like we're done in terms of we're at capacity. So we've already utilized all our resources. So at that point, again, we don't need to communicate that with the family. They don't need to know all the details. It's just hey, we are really sorry. We actually are at capacity at Kids Club, but we would love for you to come back next week. Like, we're going to make room for you, right? That type of thing. So at that point, it's depending on how they react, it's a bid for connection, right? They might still be frustrated. It's like, it depends on what time we're at capacity. If we're at 20 minutes in, we're at capacity, that's an issue on our part, right? Like, we really didn't do everything we could. But if it's, let's say it's already 10 minutes into service, that's a whole different situation at that point. So,
yeah.
Well, in either case, whether they're late or if they're a turnover, obviously I'm going to go to a headphone guy and see if they can get them in there. Yeah. But if they say no, you can't, then I always give them the goldfish and the coloring book, and I always say, or the coloring thing, and say, you can watch it in the chapel with your kids if you want.
Right.
You can watch it out here in the atrium if you want.
Yep.
And that's what I've always done. I didn't know you could override the lateness there.
Yeah.
That's if we still have room, obviously.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. And sometimes we'll stretch, just like Ben said. We'll sometimes stretch, or there have been times we've been able to say, like, all right, this kid is almost 2 years old. Like, they turn 2 next week. Yeah, we've got room in 2s. Like, we can figure that out. There's a back channel way to do it, and it's not quick and it's not easy, and it takes a while to, like, kind of remember it. But there is a way to do it. The main thing is, as the face of Kids Club, like, be an empathetic face, be an empathic face. Like that parent was hoping to worship today. That parent was hoping for inspiration today, and now they feel like they're not going to get it, which is tough. I mean, I'd be upset, I don't want people not to be upset magically. Like, just don't be mad, but by acknowledging it, like, that's the best thing. All right. And we mentioned this in the interview video, but I wanted to make sure we talked about it again. Matching left brain to left brain, right brain to right brain. Do we understand what we mean by that? Cool. So the left and right hemispheres of our brains are roughly classified in these 2 ways. The right brain is the emotional side of the brain. All right. That's the one that's really inspired by stuff. That's the thing that gets really depressed about stuff. That's the one that gets angry. That's the one that gets confused and is bothered by interpersonal kinds of things. The left side is logical. I always remember L left, L logic. All right. The left side is the one that makes plans and does strategy and can figure out philosophically and rationally, like, how something's supposed to happen. When you're in a right brain mode, the last thing that helps you is left brain behavior or words. If you're going through something really, really hard, the worst thing somebody can tell you is, well, you know, there's 8 billion people in the world and it doesn't, like, it just kind of all washes out. No, like, don't tell me that. Like, come on. At the same time, somebody just got baptized and they're like, oh man, this is amazing. You know, whatever. Like, hey, you need to get out of this aisle because there's lots of people behind you. Like, that's true. There's a logical, like, that's valid, but you got to match right brain to right brain, left brain to left brain. When you're able to match that, you're able to bring a person to the other hemisphere. All right. And if we want to bring people along to understanding the reason behind something, or the logic behind something, we first got to match that emotion. Right. So that's what. So
hold on, don't change that yet.
Oh,
this is like my wife and I exactly. I'm left brain.
Yes.
Taking a picture of that.
And we know that we've given you a lot to think about and chew on. I want to get to questions in a sec, but before we do that, you may be feeling like, now what? What's the takeaway? What do I do the next time I serve? Like, can you give me one thing that I should do? We can all use more empathy. We can all practice more empathy. I think the reason that it's a buzzword, if it's a buzzword, is because our world needs it. Like, and I think the answer is Jesus. Jesus was the guy who, when a whole village was about to kill a woman in the streets, he went down on her level and started to talk to her. Like, he matched her level. Like, who is that guy? I want to be that guy. I want to be that person. We can all do more empathy. If you're on the welcome team, remember those 4 steps of smile, gaining trust, doing the slap band thing, and then guiding them to the rooms, guiding them back to service. And when there's problems, just remember the left brain and the right brain stuff. That's honestly the left brain, right brain thing. It helps my marriage every day. And not because my wife is doing it to me. Like, I have to be the one that's like, this is a right brain situation. I have logic. I have lots of logic right now. None of it's helpful unless I'm in a right brain mode first. All right. And remember, every number has a name, and every name is loved by God. If you want to do more study, more resources, I can't say enough about this book called The Whole Brain Child. This is what it looks like here. I think this is my copy. Yeah, it's my copy. I've written all over it. It's incredible. If anybody wants to borrow it tonight, you're welcome. A book called Quiet by Susan Cain is about introverts. Won't go too much into it right now. I was sharing before, I grew up more introverted than you're an introvert. My wife's an introvert. And Crossroads is just about the most extroverted environment ever. I think that's part of its appeal in our culture, where we are always sharing things and speaking up and all that. And it can make it really, really difficult for introverts, whether they're adults or kids. And it's just a great book with a lot of information, but a lot of really practical stuff too. Setting the Table is a book that is specifically about hospitality and how it transformed this guy who's a restaurateur. It's a business book. It's a leadership book. If you dig those, this one is for you. I was talking to you about the Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast. It's full free wherever you get podcasts, and I think it's every month, maybe every 2 weeks. Andy Stanley is a church pastor down in Georgia. It's a church similar to Crossroads in a lot of ways. I think he's great. A lot of leader stuff comes from him. If you know anyone who serves on First Impressions, or you know a staff person who's part of First Impressions, man, just pick their brain. I know I have grown a lot just by learning from our brothers and sisters in First Impression. And if you're really curious about the empathy conversation, a really practical, tangible way to do it is to go through Undivided. I've gone through Undivided myself. And my hunch is Undivided is something that is so needed for Oakley specifically. So if you're watching this online in the future, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But Oakley is the site of Crossroads that sees more diversity in every meaning of that word. Socioeconomic, racial, education level, all of it. That all happens in Oakley. And a way to just sharpen those skills is to do Undivided. So questions you guys asked, and I know we're getting close to time. I hope we answer the first question. How can I help and grow more in Kids Club? I think empathy is a good starting point. Is there a suggestion system for upgrades and changing ideas? There is. You can just tell us or send us an email or something like that. And I mean, specifically me and Vince. Do you still field a lot of those kinds of things?
We've kind of slowed down since.
What's the best way?
Email. So that way we have it, and then just send it straight up to IT. And they have a whole backlog, and they are going to revisit check-in. So
cool.
There's a backlog.
Yeah. So something unique about Crossroads is that our check-in software was not purchased by. We didn't purchase it from like another company. Like programmers like did the work and they made the thing here, and they've put a boatload of hours into it. And it's not perfect. Like no system is. But they're constantly tweaking, constantly doing new sprints. When someone adds a guest, is that permanent? Yeah, it's permanent. They're in our system. We have that process so that we can capture information for all the reasons we talked about before. We also track week to week how many new families and how many guests are coming to Kids Club for the first time. And that's not because we're trying to play for numbers, but we do like to know. Hey, if we have a high invite weekend like Super Bowl, do we actually have new families coming, or is it just a lot of people who already go to Crossroads? That's a very useful thing for us to know. Do you inform parents if a kid is an aggressor, and how do room leaders communicate with parents, if at all? If that was your question, let's talk a little bit more offline. I think some of what we've covered touches that, but I think there's more there. Anything we can do when the rooms are at capacity, we talked through some of that. Would more kids be allowed in if I went into a room? Yes. It depends on the age range. In nursery, for example, there's a ratio of 1 volunteer makes space for 2 more babies. So if we're at capacity in nursery, like going into a room means you will be responsible for 2 infants. All right. It's not, I'm going to stand in the room so that more babies can be in here and other people do it. It's, I will take on the responsibility of 2 more babies. In some of the upstairs rooms, the ratio is as high as 1 to 15. So it's really kind of a graduated scale.
You're leading a small group, so that's the other piece is that you need to be comfortable of literally leading kids lessons. So,
yeah.
I think I'm the one that sent that question in because there was a week that I figured it was Super Bowl, I remember, where Adventure Club was backed up. And so then people the volunteers couldn't get in the room, so then that was backing up. Like, well, wait a second, I'll just go on Adventure Club.
Yeah.
Get some kids in there so that volunteers can check into their rooms and everything would be better. Is that a good way to think about that or not? Or is that something I need to talk to you individually about?
No, that's absolutely good, and that's where you check in with your service leader, so that way they know where you're at. So if they're expecting you to be at the check-in.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We had to have enough people at the welcome center as well.
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge like at the core of what you're asking is like, how can I help? And that's the question to be asking. It's not what's wrong with that team or whatever. Like, remember, if you're at a restaurant and you're not having great service, like, don't blame the kitchen. Like, that makes your guest feel like, but yeah, in that situation, especially when everything's backing up, that's potentially a really good solution. Sounds like Super Bowl. That could happen on Super Bowl.
Especially those quick turnovers.
Yeah, there's not a lot of time between services sometimes, and a lot of times there's first-time volunteers that we can see. And what's the vision for volunteers who are leaders? That's a super big question. I would say, again, at the end of all of this, all that will matter is, did we make disciples? Like, did we follow Jesus? Did we look like Jesus while we did it? Did we take care of people while we had the opportunity to take care of people? We used to say this all the time, and I wish we would say it more, but someday Crossroads and Kids Club will be ashes and rubble. Like, all of this stuff will be gone. And all that will matter at that point is, did we do what God told us to do while we had what we had, while we had who we had? That's a lot to say, like, that's what you do as a leader. But I think that's the core of it is we got to take care of our people. We got to take care of the people that God has given us to lead. Like, man, if we're not doing that, like, I don't care about your neat video. And I don't care about your cool training, and I don't really care whether you fed me. Like, I don't know. I could keep going on that. What do you think?
I think the way that I'm reading that too is that even for, I mean, all you guys are in this room and all of you that are listening, like, I consider you guys leaders. What that means is that when you think about it, the number of volunteers every week, we're at like 350 about. 350 volunteers. That is double the size of the average American church. Think about that. 350 volunteers is more than double the average American church.
And that's just volunteers. It's not
Just
thinking about
correct.
kids.
Correct.
It's not thinking about their families.
Correct.
Is that just Kids Club or is that
Just Kids Club volunteers, 350, right? So if you think about that, you break it down by service, like, we're a church. Your service, your age group, your team is your church. So when you talk about being a leader, it's like, how are you ministering to each other? How are you being empathetic to each other? How are you praying for one another? How are you encouraging one another? How are you strengthening one another? Like, those.
If someone gets hurt, like, how are you
So
rushing to them?
that is your church. So Crossroads is the temple, right? Like, that's where we go to worship. That's where we're all in the masses, right? But even within your team, that is your church. Those are your people. I think that's what the vision of being a leader is that you're taking care, not only just take care of your people, but you're just ministering to your people. That is your people. Who you serve with is your people. That's my 2 cents on it. Leadership.
That's an expensive 2 cents. So that was rapid fire. What other questions you guys have? Because it's easy for us to kind of sit in our room and go, these are the things people need to know. But like, you guys have encountered more probably at this point than we do in your specific volunteer roles. Like, what would be helpful to you to know more about?
What happens when a grandparent wants to check in?
Oh, right on.
Can we resolve that issue?
Yeah, no, that's good. So I actually brought these green forms. It's a perfect example. So a really good example is just this. So these are green forms that we have. So anytime anyone, like a grandparent, wants to add, or an aunt or an uncle or anyone that wants to add, like, the child to their account. So I know, Asha, you bring your godkids, I guess, right? So if you want to be able to bring them, just fill out one of these and we'll add you as a user. So what we don't want to happen is we add the child a second time. So now the child exists 2 times in our system. That's what we don't want to do. So if a grandparent or an aunt or uncle comes up to you and say, hey, so-and-so, like Johnny, comes to Kids Club regularly, but I want to be able to check them in, that's where we want to make sure that they write down their information. And then we usually will, if we need to, contact the parents, like, hey, are you okay with this? So that way we know that the grandparents check.
So the grandparent can use their number and check on the kids?
Correct.
Okay.
So that day,
instead of trying to remember.
Correct. But that day, the fix is you can add them as a guest for today, but make sure you put this on the green sheet so that way during the week we can update it. So
yeah, that's a good question. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anything that you can't do in our check-in system, you want to use the green sheet, so that will catch everything.
I'm sure. Right?
No, nothing.
No, nothing. Well,
Now-
yeah, there is no nothing in the nursery. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that's a fantastic innovation is we used to have green sheets and yellow sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And the yellow sheets had to be filled out by hand by a new family, which, again, imagine the single mom with a car seat and the kid running around wanting to high five the monkey or whatever. Like, now we give her a piece of paper and a pen. Can you please fill this out for 2 minutes before we do anything else? Like, why did we do that for so long? Like that,
So a good example is like these 4 sheets I got this week. 3 out of the 4 of them are adding someone. So adding a grandparent, adding a spouse. So those are things that we can't do. The one that we can do is changing someone to kindergarten. That's if they're in preschool kindergarten. So those are just more technicality.
The other thing I ran into, and it's happened more than once, but I had a leader do it before, you get a family come in with a guest, or I think it was a guest, and one was in the first grade, one was in the seventh grade. They wanted to be in the same room, so we check them in, and they go to the room, and they can get into the same room. Is that a problem? I was told that they could override it in the room.
They can't override in the room, and my bias is always going to be to leave that up to the person in charge of that room to decide. So what I try to do is manage expectations with the family and say, hey, we'll get them signed in right now. Don't worry right now about what the sticker says. We'll get up to the room, and it'll be up to the volunteers in the room. Because it may be that they're already at 1 to 15, and like they've stretched as far as they can, and it's like, really can't take another one.
Yeah, if they're early, that's good. If they're late, it's like, especially 10:05.
Yeah.
It could be maxed out easily.
Another rule of thumb is we'll bump a kid lower and not bump them higher.
Okay.
So like we may put a, I'm trying to think of a good example. We may put a pre-K kid in a 2-year-old room if like families just got a situation, they got to do that for that day. We're really going to do everything we can to make sure a 2-year-old doesn't end up in a pre-K room with 5-year-olds. Like that 2-year-old's going to be flat on the ground.
Okay.
And just to give you a little more like context to that is the way that we construct lessons. So starting in 2s, they have lessons. 2 is the same lesson for the whole month. They hear the same lesson. Then moving up to pre-K, now you're going to large group. Now you're there with like the 1005 with 120 kids in a room. Okay, that's a huge shift from 15 kids hearing the same message for 4 weeks versus a new message in a large group with a presentation. And then you move up to K to second is another grouping of lessons, and then 3rd or 5th. So keep that in mind too as you're helping families. That's why we have those groupings for those reasons. We talk about creating fun, welcoming, safe environment. So it's just not fun and welcome for a 2-year-old to go to preschool and preschool to go to kindergarten. Those are completely different environments.
I want to take your question. This will be the last question for now, and then I'll end this broadcast. I want to make sure that we get out on time. But thanks for tuning in.
All right. It's not a super important question, and I could give food out